So your first line command was squadron commander.
Yep. I left 212, went to War College, did a tour at headquarters of the Marine Corps, went back to Hawaii, and was the group operations officer for about 9 or 10 months, and then went down to become the executive officer of VMFA 232. Did that for about a month, and then took command and was in command for 2 years of VMFA 232, which happens to be the Marine Corps' oldest, most decorated fighter squadron.
And that was all F-4Bs and then transitioning to Ns and Ss?
We were actually, the Bs and Ns were gone by then. So my first trip back to Westpac after Vietnam, I came home and went through amphibious warfare school, went back, and we were still flying F-4Bs, 115, my second time in 115. And about 3 months in, I said, well, you guys are going to convert to the J model. And we got a bunch of Js wrapped in white cocoons that had been Navy airplanes. So we cleaned them up, put them all together, and we started flying the J, and the Bs gradually made their way to the West Coast to the depot facility to become N models. And when I got to Hawaii, they already had all Js. By the time I was a squadron commander, we were starting to receive our first S's as well. And that was a big improvement, both in the weapon system, but also had a 1,000-pound belly strap, and it was a slatted airplane. So slats can be good and they can be bad, but you had to learn how to figure out whether I'm going to lag this guy or I'm going to put my nose on him, tear all my energy out of the airplane, and hope for best.
Yeah.
You know.
So squadron command, the next command that you had was?
So I gave up squadron command. I went to Air War College in Montgomery. I went to the Joint Staff, and I was in J3, the Joint Operations Directorate, and I ran the CENTCOM Current Operations Directorate. And then I went down to Matzig, Pensacola. All the Marines that trained in Pensacola and ultimately go over to Texas or up the Mississippi go through there. So, you know, I had about like 1,000 record books and all these great young Marines, guys in swimmer school and young Marines, you know, learning to fly helicopters and fixed wing airplanes. I mean, they kept me young.
And you were the president of Marine Air University,
yeah,
using a lot of Navy resources to train people.
It was terrific.
Yeah.
Great learning experience. And I mean, you know, in the Marine Corps, as you mentioned, sort of small. I still run into people that said, oh yeah, you were my CO when I got my wings. And it's very rewarding.
Yeah.
You know, there's something special about instructing when someone gets it. When that light bulb goes on, that's all the reward you need. And then when they remember you later down the road and say, yes, sir, I remember, and I remember the hop, and you know, and it's
So after the tour in Pensacola as the top Marine down there, what was next?
So I went up to the Joint Staff again. Well, actually, first I went to 2nd MAW, and I was first the Chief of Staff, then the Assistant Wing Commander there. And I made 1 star while I was there. And I left there. In fact, kind of a funny story. I go up, you know, and I get short notice. You got to go up and you got to interview to be in the J8. Okay, so I go up and I talk to the monitors, the people that handle all the orders, and they said, not to worry, just go over there. You know, everybody had to participate. You're last. They already love the Air Force guy. So I go over and I have to go to the J8. I have to go to the Director of the Joint Staff. I have to go to the Vice Chairman, Bill Owens. He wants to see me on Friday morning, 5 a.m. Okay. So I do all that. I go home and I'm thinking, okay, that's behind me now. And I go into work on Monday morning, and I have an email from the Commandant, General Krulak. And he says, they like you, you're late. So over Thanksgiving weekend, I go up, find a home for the family. I move up to the Joint Staff.
Are you pretty removed from the Marine Corps at that point?
Yes and no. I mean, on the Joint Staff, just wonderful officers from all the services. They taught you a lot. They're very patient. Everybody knew that there was somewhere else you'd rather be, but where you are right now, you can make a difference, hopefully short term, but for sure long term. So just get on with it. Yeah. But the Marine Corps also has Marine Corps Aviation Association squadrons, one of which is in DC. And so once a month, we used to go up to the club up at Fort Myer, and there would be an aviation night and different guest speakers. And so there's a chance to go up there and kind of rub elbows and get greened up again and then head on back down. But so yes and no, but you know, you're never really out of touch.
After that, 2nd Marine Air Wing?
After that, I went down to, I was the deputy at 2MEF down at Camp Lejeune. And I was there for, I think, 12, 13 months.
That was your first experience with the ground troops, right?
I had a little bit in Vietnam because I spent 3 months with the Air Control Squadron on Monkey Mountain.
Okay.
And my additional duty was security officer.
Oh.
So learned a little bit about patrolling that I had forgotten from basic school. But that was my first really, you know, and it was terrific because both of the CGs that I had said, okay, you take care of the Muse. And so man, I really learned a lot about being a MAGTF officer in that tour. And it was so rewarding and so educational. And I think it really put me in good stead for what I did the rest of my time in uniform. And then from there, I went up to 2nd MAW.
2nd MAW. Was that a 2-year command?
2-year command from, I guess it was 98 to 2000.
So that was F/A-18. The F-4B was
long gone.
Long gone. Your combat tour didn't hold as much water with those guys because they were flying.
Yeah, they were flying high speed, doing good stuff, you know. And I mean, everything was gone but them and the Harriers, and of course the 130s. And then we had all the rotary wing. We're down at New River, which basically abuts Camp Lejeune. And we had down there, we had 53s, 46s, Cobras, and Hueys. And I was really fortunate when I was in Pensacola in that command because there was a training unit up at Whiting Field, which is where all the rotary wing guys went. And there were 2 great Marines in there. And they said, Colonel, come on up here, we're going to teach you to fly a helicopter. So I went up there and I learned how to, you know, squirrel it around the box, pick it up, set it down. And I had one problem. When I first started with it, I had a little tendency to go forward while I was hovering. And I was flying with this old warrant officer, grizzled old guy. And he says, give me the airplane. And he taxis it over and he puts the nose right at the tree line. He says, your airplane don't go forward. Cured me.
Yeah, right.
It was a blessing because I could go down to any squadron and get in one of the cockpits, you know, and to be able to go down, go on a hangar deck, talk to young Marines, look at the airplanes, look at their maintenance, go read the aircraft data book, then fly with one of their young pilots. You knew in an afternoon if they were on top of the game or whether they might be needing help. And so it was an incredible blessing for me to be able to do that. You know, I could get in the back seat of the TAV-8. I could go over and fly the Cobra, go down and fly the Frog. It was incredibly rewarding, and it was due to those 2 great captains.
So the next step was Deputy Commandant for Aviation?
No, when I left, I was promoted to 3 stars on the change of command on the parade deck, General Jones, and I was the Deputy Commandant for Programs and Resources, basically the money guy. And I had done that a little bit as a lieutenant colonel in my first tour, had worked the Hill and done the money, and so kind of a logical fit. And I went in there for, I think, 13 or 14 months. And then I became the Deputy Commandant for Aviation. And I stayed there for another 13 or 14 months. And then General Jones told me, and this is kind of a funny story, but he says, you're going to be the Assistant Commandant. And I said, oh, yes, sir. You know, but I thought he had said, I'm considering you. And so about a couple of weeks later, he says, how come you haven't moved over to the barracks? Why aren't you in the new house? I said, sir, I thought you said I was being considered. He said, no, you're it. Get moving. You know, so I went through the confirmation process and became the Assistant Commandant, which I served for 3 years.